People often ask, what do we do with tofu? This is one of the things that we do with tofu, and I'm going to show you today, and it's scrambled tofu. First, I want to show you a little trick that we learned with tofu. That is basically freezing it. When you get tofu, oftentimes, like, no matter how firm, like this one is extra firm, and no matter how firm it is, it still comes out like cottage cheesy sometimes. A trick that my friend taught me years ago is you just stick it in the freezer. Like this one is straight out of the freezer. This is like hard as a rock. Like we literally just freeze it, and then we take it out as soon as it's frozen, and we put it in the refrigerator so that it's ready for us whenever we need it. Or you can just leave it in the freezer, but then you have to thaw it out when you're ready to use it, and that can take time. But instead of having that cottage cheese texture, this one is more spongy. Like, you see how it's like, doesn't just fall apart. Like if I hadn't have frozen this, this would be more, like I said, kind of cottage cheesy, and it wouldn't even hold together while I'm squishing it. So that's one of our tips slash secrets, is how we get our tofu pretty firm. Okay, so be sure when you get your tofu, put it in the freezer. Like even if I don't get extra firm, like if I just get firm, if I put it in the freezer, it's going to change the texture and it's going to be a lot better. Okay, so we're gonna get this tofu, and I just usually start by crumbling it into the pan. And you can have this on medium heat, medium to high heat. Really, tofu just takes on the flavor that you give it. I'll do some more, because we like to do a curry tofu that one of our other friends showed us. That's really delicious. I like it just sometimes plain and roasted with salt and grapeseed oil, because it's just kind of like a buttery flavor. This one is kind of like our mock egg one that we use for breakfast. And I'm going to use this one actually to go inside of our vegan omelet later. But so you can really make it taste however you want. I like to put a little grapeseed oil. I mean, eggs are kind of fatty, and so it just kind of gives it that enhanced flavor. And grapeseed oil is pretty plain, really soft flavor, unlike olive oil. I definitely add nutritional yeast flakes. That's something I don't skip. I'm probably adding about a couple tablespoons to this. I usually add like herbs, like Italian seasoning basically, but I ran out of that, so I'm just using what's in Italian seasoning. I have parsley, thyme, a little basil, sage, and just to give it some flavor. The sage. I'm just going to put a little water in there so it can help to soak up the seasoning. Now we used to add Bragg's, but we're staying away from Bragg's now. It gives it some flavor. We were just reading about or learning about excitotoxins and all the things that are excitotoxic for the brain and the body, but this really tastes good with the herbs in there. And the way I understand it is that the tamari sauce, if it's organic, it's better for you than like the Bragg's and the soy. But we started doing it without those, and it comes out still really good. So you want to make sure you add salt. Let me grab some salt. And a little bit of turmeric for coloring and flavor. And we know turmeric is really good, anti-inflammatory and all that jazz. See, that gives it really nice color. Okay. Adding a little more water. It just cooks out, so it doesn't matter. It just really helps to get the flavors inside of the tofu. See, that has really nice color, full of flavor. And this is basically like a sponge, so it really just soaked up the flavors. Especially when you freeze it, it's really spongy. When you don't freeze it, it's not as spongy. So to me, it doesn't take... So when you freeze the tofu, it really makes it more spongy, like how I showed you. When you don't freeze it, it's not very spongy, and to me, it doesn't pick up the flavor as well. So I really advise you freeze your tofu, because then it just really soaks it up like a sponge, and the seasonings get in there, and it just makes it really tasty. What's up, Mama? Yeah? Hey, Mama. Careful, I don't want you to get hurt. Okay, I'm just adding a little salt. We usually use Celtic or Himalayan salt. Stay back, Mama, because it's hot. Okay? Hot. Yeah, really hot. Hot. Yep. Alright. Now, I do like the flavor of extra virgin olive oil in there, but it's not wise to cook extra virgin olive oil. It's better just to have it raw like that. So I just put it in at the end and then turn it off just so it can get some of the flavor. Some oils just are able to be cooked at higher temperatures than other. And extra virgin olive oil, I believe, is very good for us, but it's not good when you cook it because it does burn very easily. Alright, and how you know if it's good? You just taste it. And you make it to your liking, really. That's good. It just needs a little salt. Olivia, be careful, Mama. Stay back. Yeah, I want you to get, ouch. Yep, I'm adding a bit more salt. Yes, baby. Careful, Mama. See, that's good. Now, if you want to do like a breakfast burrito, if you want to just eat it on the side, if you're old Southern and you like grits and eggs, it's a really good substitute. The tofu is high in protein. Another thing too is we use organic soy. I know it's a bit of a controversy, the whole soy, but we make sure if we eat soy, it's organic. Okay. So now, just to top it off, I'm going to use a little bit of extra virgin olive oil because I love the flavor. And I'm going to turn this off. And then just let that finish. I'll just let that sit. And that's it. And just remember, the options are endless. Whatever flavors that you like, you can add it to tofu. It just really absorbs the flavor of whatever you put in there. So feel free to play around with it. Freeze it first, then do something like this, add a little oil for flavor and that fatty feeling, and you can't go too wrong with it. Because tofu literally has like hardly any flavor at all, and it just soaks up whatever flavors you introduce to it. That's good. And it's done. next week I'm going to publish part 2 on how we use the scrambled tofu and make a vegan omelet out of it. And I'll show you basically how we don't miss eggs at all in this house. Last week I showed you what we do with tofu, and that's kind of like one version of our egg substitute. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to turn that into a vegan omelet by adding some other things, which is another way that we substitute eggs in our opinion, much healthier way. Okay, if you've seen my video on how to make gluten-free, well, grain-free tortillas, one of the things I did was I used garbanzos for that, and this is kind of a variation of that, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do now. One thing I wanted to share with you is that I really like the Indian market for getting my beans and peas, because I can get them organic, get them at a really good price. So that's just a tip. If you guys have any Indian markets around you, or an Indian area, then you can find some really cool different varieties of beans and lentils and stuff like that. Okay, so it's really funny because I discovered this particular, I guess I should look at you, right? It's funny, there was a friend of ours who got a hold of some garbanzo bean flour, and they just mixed it with water and salt or something and made like a little pancake out of it, and I tasted it and I was like, this like seems like it has some potential. She had Indian friends that she worked with that she, you know, saw that they were using the flour, but she was just kind of experimenting like what to do with it. And I said, I think I can make something eggy out of it. And I started practicing with like a vegan omelet. And I thought I had discovered something really cool. Then I go on Pinterest and a bunch of other people have already thought of that too. But anyway, this is how we do our vegan omelet using garbanzo bean flour. And you don't have to necessarily buy garbanzo bean flour if you have this cool kitchen gadget called a Vitamix that I cannot live without. I think I've told you that in videos before, that I can't live without my Vitamix. And this is one reason why, because instead of having to buy the flour, I can just put this 1 cup of garbanzo beans, totally dry, as you can hear, into my Vitamix. I could make a flour out of this, but I just go ahead and add the water, which I add 2 cups of water. So if I do 1 cup of garbanzo beans, I add 2 cups of water. So it's a 1-to-2 ratio. And then I add some Italian seasoning to this. It's like a tablespoon. You can add nothing, you can add whatever you want really. And then, all right, and then I add like 2 teaspoons or so of salt. I like to use Celtic or Himalayan salt. Okay. And then I just put my trusty Vitamix. Okay. And that's what I get. So that's my batter. So I'm gonna make this omelet like how, you know, how people make omelets. I'm gonna add cheese to this. I'm gonna add some tofu to this. I'm gonna use Dia cheese. I like to use different ones, but this is the one I'm using today. And we have some stuff from our garden. I'm gonna use a jalapeno, I'm gonna use some peppers, I'm gonna use some onions. Okay, so I'm going to start this. Hopefully this gets hot enough. Usually I put this on the fire, so. Alright. This is grapeseed oil. I use this sprayer. It's the EVO. If you can see that. EVO. I love it because you can put your own oil in there and it sprays out very nicely. Doesn't feel super hot. Oh, hot enough. Alright, I'm going to put my peppers and my jalapenos and onions in there. I found some turnip greens. I'm with those in there too, because the more veggies the better. But I'm going to cook this part first, since the greens cook pretty fast. I love the smell of stir-fried onions, peppers, and garlic, though I don't have garlic in here. But I love the smell of stir-fry. I'm curious, like, are these peppers supposed to be red, orange, or green? My son picked them a couple days ago, And then we put it on the counter and it's turning. Anybody out there really good in gardening, let me know. Our little garden is so cute. We're working on it. We have kale, we have eggplant, we have bell peppers, jalapenos, tomatoes, blueberries, raspberries, grapes. We have a peach tree out there. Strawberry plants. So we have a few things out there. It's pretty cool. My eyes are watering. Like totally tearing up. You see that? Like totally tearing up. The food just looks so attractive when you add color. When you think about it, a lot of like grains are just kind of tan and brown. Meat is just brown, you know. When you add like fruits and vegetables, it just like brings it alive because of all the beautiful colors. I just love it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add my greens. I'm using some greens, some turnip greens. Remember on Sundays, my dad used to make omelets growing up. He is so like creative. He would just put like so many different things in the omelets. I just remember it being spinach, the tomatoes, peppers, onions, cheese. So good. Alrighty, now here's where the magic happens. So you can do all your like stir-fried veggies, whatever you want to call it. You can do all that first, and then I take the batter for the garbanzos and salt and herbs, and I just pour it on top, like so. So I pour it right there on top. I'm gonna add the scrambled tofu that I made in the first part, right there on top. Mas. And I'm gonna add a little bit of cheese. Okay, a lot of bit of cheese. Cheesy is yummy. I'm gonna put that on top. No, we just, I wish I had some left. There's this, I'll have to put it in the description below. There's this new cheese, and it's like the smoked flavor we made the other morning. I posted it on Instagram. Oh, so delicious. There's a smoked mozzarella. But this is good too. This is especially my favorite for doing like Italian dishes. Like my mother-in-law does this eggplant parm with this one. Oh, it is so delicious. So you want this to cook to where when you pick it up from the sides, it's just gonna flip over. All right.
It's old.
It's old. I mean, it's old. Okay.
That means it's brown.
Oh no, you just let the apple sit there for too long and it's oxidized. The air hit it and it just turns a little bit brown. But it still tastes the same. Okay, so if you haven't watched my grain-free tortilla recipe where I did garbanzo tortillas, I'm gonna repeat that here, that you don't wanna taste this batter. Garbanzo bean batter is disgusting. It tastes, I don't know, just like raw something. But tofu out of there? Okay, just pass me a bowl, I'll get you some tofu. And so you wanna make sure it's cooked before you even try to taste this, because it's just not gonna be delicious. Here, baby. As far as timing goes, you just wanna make sure that, I like the outside a little bit brown, and then the inside, you just wanna make sure it's not gooey. The only thing that should be gooey is the cheese, you know what I mean? Otherwise, this needs to be cooked all the way through. Once you do it a couple times, you're gonna know. But just don't taste it before it's done, because it's not gonna be yummy. Oh yeah. See how nice and brown that is? That's like delish. All right. Hot. Delicious hot. Try to make it look cute, you know? And that, my friends, is our vegan omelet. Doesn't it look delicious? It is, I promise. Some juice.
What type of pepper is always nosy? Jalapeno business, people.